friends, today we will be discussing about climate change from the perspective of greenhouse gas emissions, sustainable development and Paris Agreement. Well friends, the natural and anthropogenic processes alter the global energy budget and drives climate change. Human activities are estimated to have caused approximately 1 degree centigrade of global warming above pre-industrial levels, with a likely range of 0.8 degrees centigrade to 1.2 degrees centigrade. Global warming is likely to reach 1.5 degrees centigrade between 2030 and 2052 if it continues to increase at the current rate. Warming from the anthropogenic emissions from the pre-industrial period to the present will persist for centuries to millennia and will continue to cause further long-term changes in the climate system, such as sea level rise with associated impacts. It is reported that the risks related to droughts are indeed higher at 2 degrees centigrade compared to 1.5 degrees centigrade of global warming in some regions of the world. As regards the rainfall, the precipitation, the heavy precipitation when aggregated at a global scale is projected to be higher at 2 degrees centigrade than at 1.5 degrees centigrade of global warming. As a consequence of heavy precipitation, the fraction of global land area affected by flood-related hazards is projected to be larger at 2 degrees centigrade compared to 1.5 degrees centigrade of global warming. It is alarming that it is projected to rise a further 2 to 3 degrees centigrade by the end of this century, that is 21st century. So, the climate change and variability markedly influence all the components of the biosphere. Today, we will discuss about the sources and sinks of important greenhouse gases, the climate feedbacks, the Sustainable Development Goals and Paris Agreement. To start with, let us discuss about the greenhouse gases. The important greenhouse gases are carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide and halocarbons. Present day atmospheric concentration of greenhouse gases are at levels that are unprecedented in at least 8 lakh years. The concentration of carbon dioxide, methane and nitrous oxide have shown increases since Industrial Revolution. The carbon dioxide concentration increased by 40%, the methane concentration increased by 150% and nitrous oxide concentration increased by 20%. As regards the measurement of carbon dioxide, the direct measurement of atmospheric carbon dioxide began in the year 1957 at the South Pole and in the year 1958 at Hawaii. Then the concentration of carbon dioxide in Mauna Loa was only 315 parts per million and the per annum growth was less than 1 parts per million. Presently, the atmospheric concentration is more than 410 parts per million, while the oceans contains 39,000 gigatons of carbon. The atmosphere contains only about 800 gigatons of carbon, and the vegetation also stores about 610 gigatons of carbon. The sources for carbon dioxide emissions are fossil fuel combustion, cement production and land use changes. The airborne fraction as far as the carbon dioxide is concerned, it is only about 38%. The absorption bands for carbon dioxide are 2.7 micrometer, 4.7 micrometer and 15 micrometer. The methane is yet another greenhouse gases whose concentration increased drastically due to human action. The atmospheric methane concentration was about 750 parts per billion till the year 1800, but now it has increased to 1750 parts per billion. The methane is primarily produced by bacterial fermentation under anaerobic conditions such as rice paddies, landfills as well as in the digestive tracts of ruminants. Almost half of anthropogenic methane emission are the result of human food production, particularly the lowland rice cultivation, and also the livestock, because livestock also equally contributes to the methane emission. The absorption band for methane is at 7.7 micrometer. Further, the methane has a very short residence time in the atmosphere, which is about 9 to 15 years. The methane is removed from the atmosphere through reactions with the hydroxyl radical. It is interesting to note that when the methane reacts with the hydroxyl radical, the concentration of hydroxyl naturally decreases. If the concentration of hydroxyl decreases in the atmosphere, then the atmospheric lifetime of methane increases. Further, when methane reacts with hydroxyl, the products formed are water vapor and ozone. In fact, both water vapor and ozone are again greenhouse gases. As regards the nitrous oxide, the atmospheric concentration is about 320 parts per billion. It is mostly released into the atmosphere due to the process of nitrification, which is driven by the microbial activities. Nevertheless, the sources of nitrous oxide emissions are forest clearing, use of nitrogenous fertilizers, fuel combustion. It's very important. It is degraded in the stratosphere through the process of photolysis. The absorption band for nitrous oxide is at 7.8 micrometer. So now let us discuss about the feedbacks, the climate feedbacks. Classically, the climate is viewed as the sum of all meteorological phenomena that characterize the mean state of the atmosphere. Nevertheless, the mean state of the atmosphere as well as its variation squarely depend on the climate dynamics and interaction and feedbacks between the components of the climate system. You would be eager to know how the global mean surface air temperature is a product of the processes and feedbacks in the climate system. It was reported that the global mean surface air temperature will increase by 1.2 degrees centigrade due to the doubling of atmospheric carbon dioxide concentration in the absence of climate feedbacks. However, in the presence of climate feedbacks, the increase in global mean surface air temperature was reported to be about 2.5 degrees centigrade. So, the climate response to radiative forcing can be conceptualized categorically through the study of climate feedbacks. The feedback, the term, is widely used in the climate literature. The climate feedback is defined by Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change as an interaction in which a perturbation in one climate quantity causes a change in the second, and the change in the second quantity ultimately leads to an additional change in the first. So, a positive feedback is one in which the initial perturbation is enhanced. The concept of climate feedbacks is important in assessing whether a perturbation or forcing to a system is amplified or damped by mechanism internal to the system. In fact, the feedback framework is much sought after to analyze any complex dynamic climate system. Both positive and negative feedbacks occur in the climate system. It is essential to highlight the differences between the internal and external processes to further out our conceptualization of climate feedbacks. The internal processes are considered as those processes that occur within the climate system, and they include atmospheric weather systems, ocean circulations, and processes occurring at the land surface interface. On the other hand, the external processes are not affected by the state of the system. In fact, the climate system is forced by the external processes. There are different types of climate feedbacks. We will be discussing the water vapor feedback, snow and ice albedo feedback, cloud feedback, lapse rate feedback, and ocean circulation feedback. So, let us see the water vapor feedback. We know water vapor is predominantly the radiatively active gas present in the atmosphere. It is responsible for the infrared opacity in the atmosphere. It is important to know that the atmospheric concentration of water vapor in the event of increasing concentration of other greenhouse gases cause global warming and climate change. as the increases in greenhouse gases excluding water vapor would affect positively the concentration of water vapor. The climate model studies indicate water vapor feedback, which is a very significant positive feedback that in fact augments the sensitivity of the surface temperatures to the carbon dioxide by nearly a factor of 2 when considered in isolation from other climate feedbacks. In a warming climate, the atmospheric concentration of water vapor increases, which greatly increases the greenhouse effect and that lead to further warming. This is indeed a positive feedback. While this water vapor feedback is reported to be the largest in the tropics, where the tropical environment favors higher air temperature and maximum water vapor concentration. The polar region experience weaker water vapor feedback. So now let us discuss about the snow and ice albedo feedback. This feedback is based on the premise that the snow and ice cover influence the surface air temperature and they observe only less of solar radiation as compared to the underlying dark surface. In a warmer climate, the snow and ice cover are expected to decrease due to increasing temperature. Melting of snow and ice exposes the underlying surface, which are either rock or oceans, resulting in more absorption of solar radiation. In other words, as the surface temperature increases, the albedo, that is the reflectivity, will decrease due to the melting of ice. The additional input of solar energy causes warming, which incidentally result in even more melting. This positive feedback loop or feedback can amplify a cooling as well as a warming. For instance, as the climate cools, the consequent increase in ice and snow cover reflects more sunlight and thereby the cooling is amplified. It can be stated that any climate feedback that enable decrease in albedo as a result of increase in surface air temperature is a positive climate feedback. Now, let us discuss about the cloud feedback. The cloud feedbacks are interesting set of climate feedbacks as they are a major source of uncertainty in climate change prediction, and also the cloud processes by itself are very complex to comprehend. The cloud processes are important in the global climate system as they have the potential to contribute in the climate feedbacks. The surface warming could result in the formation of more clouds, and consequently the increase in albedo on account of more clouds could lower the surface air temperature. Since the original perturbation like surface warming is reduced in this feedback, the feedback is called the negative feedback. It is a very important point. Nevertheless, since the clouds are formed of water vapor, increase in water vapor that can lead to the formation of cloud formation, that is a very important component of this particular feedback. So, this is a very important feedback as compared to other feedbacks. Factoring both the positive and negative feedback effect of the cloud feedback, it is indeed an uphill task in modeling studies and further contributing to the uncertainty in the climate change projections. However, it is reported that the net effect of cloud feedback is positive. Now, we will discuss about the lapse rate feedback. It is another important feedback that is in operation as far as the climate system is concerned. The lapse rate is defined as the rate of change of an atmospheric variable, usually temperature, with height. The lapse rate is said to be positive when the atmospheric variable decreases with the height. The strength of the greenhouse effect is influenced by the rate of decrease in the atmospheric temperature in the troposphere and with height. In other words, a stronger lapse rate leads to a stronger greenhouse effect. In case of negative lapse rate, the larger temperature changes occur in the upper troposphere. On the other hand, the positive lapse rate feedback is said to occur when larger temperature changes are observed at the surface. So now let us discuss about the ocean circulation feedback. Oceans play an important role in Earth's climate. Further, they are likely to have a significant influence on the anthropogenic climate change. Oceans influence the Earth's climate in more than one ways. The coupled ocean-atmosphere system exhibits the flow of atmospheric water vapor from ocean and the atmosphere interact with the ocean through wind-driven ocean circulation, which play an important role in global heat budget. The oceans possess a large heat capacity. It's a very huge heat capacity, and oceans would warm much more slowly than the atmosphere. Now, let us discuss about the Sustainable Development Goals and Paris Agreement. Sustainable development of humanity and our planet is challenged by a number of environmental challenges. Climate change is the foremost challenge among them. In effect, climate change is a reality and calls for an urgent action at global and national level. According to United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, the global nature of climate change calls for the widest possible cooperation by all countries and their participation in an effective and appropriate international response with a view to accelerating the reduction of global greenhouse gases emission. In this context, the SDG and the Paris Agreement are very significant. Among the Sustainable Development Goals, there are 17 Sustainable Development Goals which are specified in the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Climate action is not only the one of the SDG, but it also impacts most of other SDGs as well. It is a threat enhancer. The climate change is a threat enhancer with the potential to negatively affect humanity's greatest challenges, including health, poverty, hunger, inequality, and ecosystem preservation, among others. The goals are interconnected. The Sustainable Development Goals are very much interconnected. The SDG framework addresses key systematic barriers to sustainable development such as inequality, unsustainable consumption pattern, weak institutional capacity, and environmental degradation. The 2030 Agenda, it's called Global Agenda, and the Paris Agreement share the purpose of creating a more resilient, productive, and healthy environment for present and future generations. The Global Agenda also strengthens the Paris Agreement on climate change by promoting and facilitating energy efficiency and clean energy. It also aims to augment the resilience to extreme weather events and climate change, and protect the habitat and ecosystem, and enhance the resource efficiency and enable the sustainable production and consumption. The Sustainable Development Goal 13 commits to urgent action to climate change and its impact. SDG 13 is a very important goal as far as the climate change is concerned. It deals with the climate action. This goal emphasizes the globally agreed need to mitigate anthropogenic greenhouse gas emissions and adapt to the damages caused by climate change, while acknowledging that the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change is the primary international intergovernmental forum for negotiating the global response to climate change. The United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change acknowledges that the global nature of climate change calls for widest possible cooperation by all countries and their participation in an effective and appropriate international response in accordance with their common but differentiated responsibilities and respective capabilities and their social and economic conditions. The scope of goal SDG 13 includes three important targets. The first target talks about strengthening the resilience and adaptive capacity to climate related hazards and natural disasters in all countries. The second important target deals with the integration, that is basically it aims at integrating the climate change measures into national policies, strategies and planning. The third important target aims to improve the education, capacity building, awareness raising and human institutional capacity on climate change mitigation, adaptation, impact reduction and also early warning systems. So, as regards the Paris Agreement, it was signed in the year 2015 and entered into force in the year 2016. The Paris Agreement aims to strengthen the global response to the threat of climate change in the context of sustainable development and efforts to eradicate poverty, including a very important objective, that is including holding the increases in the global average temperature to well below 2 degrees centigrade above the pre-industrial levels, and pursuing efforts to limit temperature increase to 1.5 degrees centigrade above pre-industrial levels, recognizing that this would significantly reduce the risks and impacts of climate change. A second important objective is increasing the ability to adapt to the adverse impacts of climate change and foster climate resilience and lowering the greenhouse gas emissions. That's a very important again an objective, second objective. The third important objective talks about the finance flows. So, the finance flows must be very consistent with the pathway towards low greenhouse gas emissions and climate resilient development. So, the main features of the agreement are universal application, irrespective of any country. It is universal application is a very important component of this Paris Agreement. The principle of equity and the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities and respective capabilities are also part and parcel of this particular agreement. And other features of this particular agreement are legally binding nature of this agreement that will apply to those states that have expressed their consent to be bound by the means of ratification, acceptance, approval or accession. So, the climate change discourse that led to the Paris Agreement throws light on few pertinent challenges. The first and foremost important thing is the mismatch between the scientific and political time scales. The second important challenge is the responses to climate change involve modification in the energy infrastructure and also transportation infrastructure. The third important challenge is the national circumstances complicate the policy responses, the policy development and so on and so forth. It's in fact complicates the process. The last challenge that we have seen in the process of climate change discourse is the difficulty in defining the responsibilities of the industrial countries and also the developing countries. So, in effect, looking at all the aspects that has led to the Paris Agreement and Sustainable Development Goals, the climate treaty, for that matter any treaty, climate treaty, the basic elements of climate treaty are the emission targets, the legally binding agreements, the multi-year compliance periods, emission trading between the parties, carbon sequestration and incentives for the developing countries. As regards the India's preparedness and progress towards achieving the Sustainable Development Goal 13 is a climate action, the Government of India has entrusted Niti Aayog with coordinating the SDG agenda in India and has asked the states to prepare action plans, state level action plans, and also embarked upon an exercise to develop national indicators for the 17 goals, besides undertaking consultation on specific goals. Further, the National Action Plan on Climate Change, it's a very important program. It has started in the year 2008. This National Action Plan on Climate Change identifies 8 core national missions to be implemented as part of the adaptive strategies of climate change in the areas of sustainable agriculture, water, Himalayan ecosystem, enhanced energy efficiency and accumulation of strategic knowledge on climate change. The plan also, the National Action Plan on Climate Change also identifies measures for economic growth, increasing the living standard while yielding co-benefits for addressing climate change effectively. To conclude, according to the global warming of 1.5 degrees centigrade special report from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the world has already warmed by 1 degree centigrade, increasing the episodes and intensity of extreme weather events. The report states that limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees centigrade is still possible, but would require rapid and far-reaching transitions in how we manage land, energy, industry, buildings, transport and cities. Specifically, the global net human cost emission of carbon dioxide would need to fall by about 45% from 2010 levels by the year 2030, reaching net zero by the year 2050. Climate action requires efforts on mitigation, adaptation, and means of implementation. That includes climate finance, technology, capacity building. Just as problems are interrelated, the solutions to poverty, inequality, climate change, and other global challenges are also interlinked. Valuable opportunities exist to accelerate progress by examining interlinkages across the Sustainable Development Goals. To achieve the Sustainable Development Goals and implement the Paris Agreement, both developed and developing countries alike will need to transform their energy systems, ecosystem management, agriculture system, and land use. That's a very important thing. Urban management, material use, gender outcomes, health, education, governance, and other related areas. So, the take home message from this present discussion is the present day atmospheric concentration of greenhouse gases are at levels that are unprecedented in at least 8 lakh years. The concentration of carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide have shown increases since Industrial Revolution. In fact, the carbon dioxide concentration increased by 40%, the methane concentration increased by 150%, and nitrous oxide concentration increased by 20%. The second important message is the climate feedbacks. Climate feedbacks occurring in the dynamic and complex climate system involve large scale atmospheric circulation, ocean circulation, vegetation, ice sheets, etc. The climate feedbacks like melting of ice sheets on the continental scale largely reported to occur on time scales of centuries. On the other hand, feedbacks like water vapor feedback occur on the scales of days or weeks. That's all for now. Thank you.